hides behind shadows. Shadows twist into narratives.
They found him exactly when they needed him.
No motive linked to January 6th, none proven.
If this suspect fits too perfectly, someone wrote the script. The Suspect reveal in theaters now. Fits.
Tonight, the January 6th pipe bomber case we've been tracking just took a turn nobody in Washington wanted. Yes, the suspect is in custody, but the media, of course, is celebrating. However, something is very wrong with the story. The profile's too clean, the timing too convenient, and the questions being asked by legal experts are the ones the DOJ desperately hopes President Trump never hears. What happens when the man in the Oval Office discovers who is actually running the case inside his own Justice Department? So, here's what's at stake. For 3 years, the FBI produced nothing on the pipe bomber. Pixelated footage, vague sketches, dead ends, and now suddenly we have Brian Cole Jr., a suspect who CNN immediately labeled a white man and a Trump supporter and an election denier. Every single box the establishment needed checked in 48 hours. Legal analyst Viva Frey is asking the question that should terrify every American. Does Donald Trump know who the prosecutor is on the case? Does Pam Bondi? Because if deep state holdovers are still running the show inside the DOJ, this case is not about justice, it's about narrative control. It's about pinning January 6th on Trump supporters one more time before the truth comes out. And if that's true, the entire foundation of this prosecution is compromised. So as we wrap up 2025, it is a good time to slow down and reflect on the year. If there's one thing that we've learned, uncertainty isn't temporary, it's the world we live in now. Waiting for things to go back to normal is not a plan, it's a gamble. And for over a decade, my friends at Noble Gold Investments have helped Americans protect themselves by diversifying with gold and silver. Yes, nobody knows what 2026 will bring, but one thing is for sure, real wealth is not digital, it's physical, it's lasting, and it's yours. So before the year ends, take one smart step towards a safer future and visit nextnewsgold.com and get your free wealth protection kit today. That's nextnewsgold.com. Don't leave your future to chance, or call that number on the screen, 877-646-5347, to find out how you can get 10 1-ounce silver holiday coins with a qualified account. Now, let's continue, because here's where it gets even more suspicious. Reports now claim that Cole expressed interest in anarchist groups while also being a general Trump supporter. That's a contradictory profile that makes no sense unless it was assembled by committee. CNN's Evan Perez admitted the suspect supposedly believed the 2020 election was stolen. Not exactly a rare opinion, but very convenient if you're trying to craft a political motive for a case that confounded investigators for years. And when the Daily Wire pushed back, asking if Trump would have pardoned a bomber, the establishment pounced. They're already shaping the narrative before the facts are even public. So here's the moment when President Trump was asked directly, "What's your gut instinct?" Kara Castronova, White House correspondent, asking the question at a round table. Let's watch.
Democrat hoax.
Entertain. I'm Kara from Lindell TV, Kara Castronova. I'm not fake news, just so you know. When you did nothing wrong, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that question. It's sort of a statement, and I appreciate it very much. Jesselyn is being looked at. They all have to be looked at. What they're doing is so bad. This was a whole Democrat hoax. The whole thing was a Democrat hoax, and it's all being looked at. I appreciate that.
It's all being looked at. It's a Democrat hoax. So, in case you missed it, the January 6th pipe bomber kept buying bomb material after the attack. Christina Aguayo writes, alleged J6 pipe bomber Brian Cole. His face has been revealed, and here's what we know about him. According to legal filings, 30 years old, works in a bail bonds office, lives with his mom in Woodbridge, Virginia, 5 feet 6 inches tall, wears corrective eyeglasses. The FBI has years' worth of records of purchases at stores around the Northern Virginia region for pipe bomb components, and the phone pings fall in line with the bomber's movements. Brian Cole Jr. of Woodbridge was arrested on Thursday last week for allegedly planting pipe bombs outside both the RNC and DNC headquarters on January 5th, the night before the Capitol events. Now, let's continue here. More questions are being raised. The J6 pipe bomb sparks new questions. Populous Times writing this, that we have court documents and recent media reports following the arrest of J6 pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole describe him 30-year-old resident, 20 minutes from D.C. lived. He was socially isolated and has developmental challenges. His grandmother said he's very naive. He's almost autistic-like because he doesn't understand a lot of stuff, adding he's slow. He may be 30, but he's got the mind of a 16-year-old. That is what they're saying over on that. And then we have this. J6 pipe bomber suspect's family just rained all over the left's Blame Trump parade. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. We've lost track of the many times our pals on the left and even some on the right have assured us that they've got Trump this time, only to have it turn out they didn't have him that time or any time. And boy, howdy, they were super excited when CNN reported with anonymous sources the J6 pipe bomb suspect thought the 2020 election had been stolen from Trump. Finally, they would be vindicated. It was an insurrection. And of course, they all want you to believe CNN because CNN is one of them. Well, it turns out there's one massive problem with the claim CNN reported based on someone we have no idea who they claimed was familiar with the situation. He is no Trump supporter. Even his family says so. John Solomon reports family of J6 pipe bomb suspect denies he's a Trump supporter, according to his report. Well, we feel shocked? Nope, not at all. That is from Just the News. That was the grandmother. Quote here, the grandmother of January 6th pipe bomb suspect denied in a news report that her grandson was a fan of President Trump, arguing he had no party affiliation and never votes in elections. So you can see how the narrative is falling apart. Let's jump in with Viva Frey, who's with Benny Johnson. This was about 72 hours ago. Former litigator Viva Frey says the physical appearance and walk of the pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole does not line up for him. I can't get past it. And of course, if you recall, when the early reports came out on the gait analysis, it pointed to somebody completely different than who was arrested. So let's hear what Viva Frey has to say here.
So clearly, it's got to be foot.
The retort to that,
or the vehicle belonging to him is sitting there on Capitol Hill. So clearly, it's got to be footage of the guy getting out. Does he have a backpack? Does he have a hoodie on? Does he have a mask on? Does he have his gloves? Like, show us.
Well, but this, going back to the beginning part where you said, the guy lacked confidence, the retort to that would be if this person knew exactly how to avoid, certain cameras in terms of how they got to where they were and where they started. But
that's what I'm saying. Like, they didn't avoid cameras. Like an operator could have taken circuitous routes around Capitol Hill to be at least, to be the least on camera. But this individual was the most on camera.
Well, except as we say, like, we don't see the person putting on the mask. We don't know how they got to where they are and how they left. So,
but we'll do they have that? I mean, that's what Mike Benz's contention is, that they do have that.
Benny, I've got 6 cameras around my property, high def. I can skim through any second of the day to see what happened where. Do I believe that they don't know? Do I believe that they could easily identify this individual if he's black? I mean, like, it's like black and white. It's the easiest thing to determine. Forget whether or not it's a woman or a man. The person, black or white, we should be able to determine that. Yes. And if someone's going to try to tell me that we can't, based on all of the footage and all of the cameras in DC, call me conspiratorial, call me a pessimist. I'll have great difficulty, believing that. So if it turns out definitively that this person is Cole walking around, all right, then we've got to know who else was involved in radicalizing this kid, if any. We're going to see, what his search history was. I presume they're going to get that off of the computer. We're going to see if there were other things on his computer which might stir up other conspiracy theories. There was a Twitter thread where that they were talking about whether or not this guy had alternative handles on sex websites. We'll find all of this out. But we're at chapter 1. Maybe we're not at chapter 1. Maybe we're at chapter 5 because we've had a previous 4 chapters that nobody enjoyed reading. We've got to wait for the additional evidence to come out. All I'm saying is, like, you look at this, and we'll see how this kid moves. His neighbors say he doesn't walk like the guy, like the person in the footage. We don't yet know what his weight was at the time of the incident. To me, it doesn't look like the same frame as Hoodie Guy. But we'll see. I mean, they've arrested the person. They're going to gather more information. We have not yet had massive disclosure of the evidence in support of this arrest. The affidavit, sufficient in my view to warrant an arrest. There's a lot of coincidences there. but maybe not sufficient to secure a conviction, and they'll get more information. But this reeks like it was part of a plot involving the former DOJ, the former FBI, and Biden's administration, and they didn't just neglect to look it over. They actively participated in this and could never have it see the light of day. So hopefully that evidence comes out, because otherwise, if it's just a one-off lone nutbag, like in other cases where we've been told to believe the unbelievable, a lot of us are not going to believe it.
I mean, oh, wow. That is absolutely stunning. Here is CNN's Jake Tapper calling the J6 pipe bomb suspect a white man.
State Commerce, Ryan Cole Jr., a 30-year-old white man from the D.C. suburbs, is charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and with malicious destruction. Ryan Cole Jr., a 30-year-old...
CNN, man. Yeah, they never fail. This is 72 hours ago. This is from MS Now, which is the rebranded MSNBC because nobody watches them and they need a rebrand. MS Now reports Brian Cole in custody expressed interest in social media anarchist group and generally supports President Trump.
He was on. We were learning last night and confirmed more details this morning that Brian Cole Jr., the suspect in the January 6th pipe bombing case, confessed to FBI investigators yesterday in an interview that he planted those two devices that did not detonate in the areas around the DNC and RNC headquarters on January 5th. He was on surveillance tape, or a person was on surveillance tape doing that. He confessed that that was him. We also learned that he indicated that he was a supporter generally of Donald Trump, and also that he has been involved in basically supportive kind of social media interest in anarchist groups and anarchist philosophies. But investigators are still stumped about what his motive was. That is not yet clear. Though he's cooperating with investigators, they are not yet sure what really moved him to do this. There doesn't seem to be any evidence, I want to add, that he, at least not yet, it doesn't seem to be any evidence that he coordinated with any of the militia groups that ultimately were involved in planning the breach of the Capitol.
You see how she just threw out those trigger words there just to kind of like imply but clarify that he wasn't. It's just crazy. CNN's Evan Perez, what we learned is that among the statements has made, he believed the election was stolen. Here's the narrative development.
And what we've learned, the Deputy Director of the FBI, Dan Bongino, who's really has been a big force for trying to solve this case, he said on Fox News last night that they had interviewed the suspect, the young man who'd been arrested on this case, at length over the last 24 hours. And what we've learned is that among the statements that he has made is that he believed the 2020 election was stolen. And so that appears to be the first statement that has been made in this case that might give an indication of a motive of why he may have placed these bombs in those locations. You remember the two bombs were found at the RNC building, in an alley behind the RNC building, and at the DNC building, both of those just a couple blocks away from the Capitol. And for the last 5 years, Sarah, you know that this has been certainly a fixation of a lot of conspiracies as to whether this was something connected to the riot, because you remember when they found these bombs, the crowd had just begun surging and breaking through some of the cordons at the U.S. Capitol just a few blocks away. So the question was it connected to the riot and to the conspiracy theories that the president had been pushing forward to overturn the election? Well, now we know that this suspect has at least told the investigators in this case that part of what was going on at the time in 2020 was that he believed that the 2020 election was stolen, which is something that President Donald Trump was pushing at that time. Now, we don't know what else he has said as part of those interviews. Certainly, we're going to learn a lot more, perhaps today when he appears in court, and perhaps we'll see additional charges that will come forward from the Justice Department, from prosecutors, but certainly more to come on this.
Certainly more to come, that's for sure. Man, you got to love the mainstream media when they just start pushing narratives. Let's go back to Viva Frey. Does Donald Trump know who's working in Pam Bondi's DOJ?
Before trial, they put me in a room, and we talked about this part. They put me in a room. They slid a piece of paper across the desk with a narrative on it. And they're like, if you sign this, you'll have a bail hearing next week, and we guarantee you won't do a single day in prison. I pulled the document in. I looked at it. And basically, what the document said was that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, through the means of a third party, told me to storm the Capitol of the United States to stop the certification of the election.
May I stop you just for 1 second? Who's asking? Who's sliding?
Now, if you don't know who that is, I believe that's Enrique Tarrio on the right.
This paper, and who's asking you to sign it?
And Viva Frey is speaking with him now.
Her name is Jocelyn Ballantyne, and she works for the Department of Justice. And she was the head of the Capitol Siege Division for the Department of Justice at the time. Sitting in the room, she's the one that offered it. I said no. And she told me to lie about the president in order to go home. And there is no doubt in my mind. There's no doubt. There's no doubt. Because at that time, Jack Smith hadn't been appointed yet. There's no doubt in my mind that one of the people that were working with Jack Smith to prosecute the president, because it was a January 6th case, she definitely worked with Jack Smith. There's no doubt in my mind that Jocelyn Ballantyne worked with Jack Smith to prosecute the president of the United States, right? Because there's no other person, right, that knows more about everything that happened at the Capitol than the head of the Capitol Siege Division at the DOJ.
But I presume, you'll correct me if my assumption is wrong, had you signed that, they would have used that, Ballantyne would have used that to prosecute Trump.
Well, she would have given it to Jack Smith at that point. Jack Smith, again, the timeline is that Jack Smith wasn't appointed until a couple months later. Actually, yeah, a couple months later. But I'm 100% sure she would have been the person working there with it.
So you see, they're dropping names here. Where are these people now? Does Trump know who is the prosecutor on the J6 pipe bomber case? Does Pam Bondi? Unfortunately, there are no good answers to these questions. The shocking moment of my interview with Noble One, where he, for the first time, explains how it was Jocelyn Ballantyne who tried to coerce a false plea deal implicating Trump in order to spare Enrique jail time. The same Jocelyn Ballantyne who is still working at the DOJ and is now prosecutor in the J6 pipe bomber case. If you didn't know this, please share it and get it to the attention of President Trump. There are no mistakes or contradictions that can be overlooked any longer. Do you understand that? Do you understand the context that we're discussing here? The same person who tried to implicate President Trump through a false statement signed by Enrique Tarrio while he was under duress in a prison cell is now working still in the DOJ and the prosecutor in the case for the J6 pipe bomb. Think about that. 3 days ago, the FBI says this is according to CNN, again, narrative control, told the FBI he believed in conspiracy theories about the 2020 election. So, again, this is another segment on CNN pushing that false narrative.
Also, let's look at our other breaking news this morning. We're getting some more details on the man accused of planting pipe bombs right near the U.S. Capitol on the eve of January 6th. Sources tell CNN the 30-year-old suspect in this case, Brian Cole Jr., told investigators after his arrest he believed the 2020 election was stolen, providing...
You see that? No, boom. Right there, right in the open of that breaking news clip. That is the first point they make to drive home for people just casually watching. They see the breaking news graphics show up on the screen. They lead with that message so that everybody goes, "Ho, ho, ho, did you hear that?" And then they go, "Okay, well, turns out, yeah, he was MAGA. He was MAGA, clearly, right?" But bigger questions now. And then we have this from this is on CNN. Looks like we have Abby Phillip and Isabel B. in the roundtable. Daily Wire comments, "I'm sorry, does the left really think that trespassing and planting bombs are the equivalency?"
I do wonder if he had been actually caught around the time of January 6th and prosecuted, would he have been included in Trump's pardons?
I mean, okay, this is absolutely beyond the pale to me, to be honest, to claim that we don't know any sort of inkling of a motive of this individual when just a few months prior there was a lawsuit ruled in the Trump administration's favor against this particular individual for his company seeking to let illegal immigrants out of prison on bail bonds. He purchased the supplies in 2019.
Just to clarify,
very clearly.
What we're saying is that on that podium there,
yeah, you're suggesting that he's tied to January 6th insurrectionists theoretically, because had he been found at that time,
we are saying that Kash Patel and Pam Bondi did not provide a motive, and so. You can speculate all you want, but the authorities who are charging this guy haven't laid out a motive. That's all I've said. The other thing is that, no, I'm not suggesting that he was tied to stop the steal, but I'm not sure why you think that would be
had he been discovered right after January 6th, would he have been included in the pardonings from individuals who participated?
So it's called a hypothetical. Had he been prosecuted alongside all of those other...
Just throwing out the hypotheticals. See, here's the bottom line. If President Trump discovers that his own DOJ is staffed with holdovers and infiltrators running shadow prosecutions, if he realizes the pipe bomber case was politically sculpted rather than factually solved, the entire J6 mythology collapses. And that is what they fear. That is why they rushed this suspect into the spotlight, and that is why the ground under their feet is starting to crack tonight. Now, the story matters because it's not about one suspect. It's about who controls the Department of Justice. For 3 years, the FBI gave us nothing, blurry videos, contradictory timelines, a composite sketch that looked designed to identify no one. Now, out of nowhere, a suspect appears who fits every narrative requirement the regime demanded, suspiciously after Steve Baker and the Blaze TV broke the news on who they believed was the actual pipe bomber, who was a female Capitol Police officer. All right. So you have somebody who is a grandmother, admits he's not very smart, he's borderline autistic, and clearly never indicated anything about President Trump. Right? You see what's happening here? It's like they picked some person that was, low IQ or whatever, and they're like, let's go. Right? All signs point to that, but so you don't look at the Capitol Police officer. Right? They said he was a Trump supporter. They said he was an election denier. He said he was a white male. Every single talking point gift wrapped for CNN. The American people are not stupid. They see the pattern. They remember how the Russia hoax was constructed. They remember how evidence was fabricated, sources were invented, and careers were destroyed to protect the establishment. So the case smells the same. And my question for you, we can talk about in the comments, do you believe the official pipe bomber story? Yes or no? Sound off in the comments. And if you want to support independent journalism that asks these questions, check out the Next News merch shop. It's linked in the description.